Good afternoon. Welcome to the January 23rd, 2025 meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission. I'd like to call us to order. Before we begin, I just have a few housekeeping items. If you have a cell phone with you, please silence or turn it off. If you're here to speak on an item and are not the applicant, if you could please fill out one of these forms. They're outside. And provide that to Elena or Jared down here. You'll be called upon when we've reached that item in the public speaking portion and comment. When that item is heard, you'll be called. Please come up to the podium, give your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to speak. If you're here to speak on an item with a large group of people, I feel that that's the case today in some items, we encourage you to elect a single representative to share your group's concerns. And if that's the case, some additional time for that speaker will be considered in those instances. Where several speakers are heard, we just ask that you do your best to limit your comments to concerns that we haven't heard yet. We're just trying to limit the extensive repetitious comments and keep the meeting efficient. Please direct all your comments to the commission, questions or comments to the commission, and if needed, we'll ask staff or the applicant to respond. Finally, we just appreciate everyone's presence here today and the time that you've taken away from your obligations to attend, and we just ask for your assistance in upholding the decorum of the meeting. And we ask that you not speak from the audience. So with that, I appreciate your attention, and we'll begin with item 2, which is receipt of the minutes. Do you have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to receive the minutes for January 9th, 2025 meeting.
We have a motion to receive the minutes. That's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. Minutes are received. Item 3 is continuance requests and uncontested requests.
Item 27, case SP 591, defer to February 13th. Item 28, SPUD 1705, defer to February 13th. Item 29, case C 7692, defer to February 27th. Item 30, case PC 10950, defer to February 27th. Item 31, case C 7410, defer to March 27th. Item 32, case PUD 2043, continued indefinitely. Item 33, case C7621 has been withdrawn. Item 34, case CPA 2024-1 has been withdrawn. And item 35, case PUD 1990 has been withdrawn.
All right, do we have anyone here to speak on any of those items? All right, seeing none, I just need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the continuance request as read.
A motion to approve the uncontested continuance request as read. That's been seconded. Please cast your votes. And those are approved. New requests.
We have 2. Item 11 is PUD 2046, has been withdrawn. And item 25, SPUD 1673, has requested defer to February 27th.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue item 14, which is the changes to the comp plan amendment. I understand that we, several weeks ago, asked the staff to modify this item to include some additional neighborhoods. And I understand that we were considering this based on some objective criteria about what constitutes urban low versus what constitutes urban medium. I think that in light of all that we're continuing to learn about what the zoning code update may look like, there may be some implications there for changing the LUDA that deliver some unintended consequences. I know, frankly, that our neighbors who are here are concerned about a certain ordinance that we passed several weeks ago that they all know what I'm referencing. But in light of some concerns about that, I think it would be good for us to continue to have some discussions about the impacts of making these changes. And so I'd recommend that we continue this item for a month and then give us some time to have some more discussion and come back. And so that's the motion.
Are there,
And I agree with that, so I will second that motion.
okay?
Can I make a quick comment? That will put
Please.
us past the city council reintroduction of the item would be February 11th. I think, so that would put us past that, just for your information.
If council doesn't think that they want the ADU, that ordinance, to be included, then my guess is they will continue that item until we've made a final decision. So, and I will certainly be lobbying my own council person to do that. So,
So we have a motion and a second to include item 14 in the new requests.
So
Yeah.
separately?
Vote on that separate? Okay. So we're going to vote to include item 14 in new requests.
We have a motion and a second? I don't have a thing to vote.
yeah, I can't vote.
There it goes.
There we go.
And is this only item 14?
Yeah.
New request, I mean.
We just need to do a voice vote? Okay.
What was the name of the computer in Odyssey?
All right, please cast your votes. All right, that's unanimous. All right, so that is now added to the new request. So now I just need a motion to continue the new requests. Item 11 and 25.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve new requests number 11, 25, and 14.
The motion from Commissioner Noble to approve the new requests. That's been seconded by Commissioner Bennington. Please cast your votes. And those items are approved. Item 4, item A, is the consent docket.
The consent docket has several items. The first item is case C-7708, final plat of VVC Phase 2. This is located north of Northwest Expressway and west of North Mustang Road. Item 2 is case C-7709, final plat of Crystal Creek Farms, being a part of the northeast quarter of Section 9, and this is located west of South Mustang Road and south of Southwest 104th Street. Item 3 is case C-7710, final plat of Echo Park Phase 2, located north of Northwest 150th Street and east of North MacArthur Boulevard. And item 4 is case C-7711, final plat of Callady West, located north of West Effner Road and east of North Council Road.
Anyone here to be heard on any of those items? All right, seeing none, I just need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent docket as read.
I have a motion to approve the consent docket. It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. And the consent docket passes. Brings us to items requiring separate vote. Item 5.
This is case CE 1135, application to close a portion of the north-south utility easement west of North Morgan Road and south of West Memorial Road.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Colton Wayman with Wallace Design, 410 North Walnut. This is a request to close a portion of the utility easement at Piedmont Stone Ridge Elementary. There's an existing fire line in that easement that'll be relocated to accommodate a new storm shelter that the school's wanting to put in. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. This is my ward. I don't have any concerns. Pretty straightforward. So I'm in support of it. Just can't make a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve case CE 1135.
I'm sorry, before we do
There
that,
are-
can I just ask, there's nothing in the easement currently?
There's an existing fire line that'll be relocated.
A fire line, what is that?
Hydrant.
Oh, okay, okay.
It'll get relocated for the new construction, so
Okay,
that will be vacated.
thank you, I'm sorry.
And there are no TEs.
All right. So we had a motion from Commissioner Noble to recommend approval to City Council. That's been seconded by Commissioner Newman. Please cast your votes. And that item passes. Item 6.
Item 6 is case CE 1136, application to close a portion of a 20-foot storm drainage easement east of North Rockwell Avenue and south of Melrose Lane.
Good afternoon, David Box, 525 Northwest 11th Street, here on behalf of the applicant. This is for a closing of a small piece of an easement that is under a building. Jared, if you could display it. This, I think it's a drainage easement, predates, my belief is, the tributary that is to the east. There was another drainage easement that ran in favor of the county that actually ran through the middle of the building that we're working towards removing as well. So there are no TEs, and this is simply a cleanup. There was a transaction that was moving forward, and this was a cloud on the title, so we had to come clean this up before they could close.
All right, Commissioner Meek, this is your ward.
Yes, sir. I met with the applicant regarding this. Don't see any issues. Ready to make a motion?
Okay, any other questions or comments from commissioners?
Okay. I'd like to recommend a recommendation for approval on CE 1136.
We have a motion from Commissioner Meek to recommend City Council approval.
I already did. I already pushed it.
There we go. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
All right. Item 7.
Item 7 is case CE 1137, application to close a portion of the east-west utility easement on Lot 10 and Block 55 of Seminole Point, Addition, Section 12, west of North Pennsylvania Avenue and south of Northwest 164th Street.
Once again, David Box, 525 Northwest 11th Street. This is a closing application for a portion of utility easement that's in the side yard. We request to close 2.3 feet of the 5 foot. My client was the home builder, has since sold it to someone. That someone was attempting to sell it, and this came up on a title report. So my belief is that there are no utilities within the 2.3 feet we seek to close, and there are no TEs.
All right. This is Ward 8.
So, Mr. Box, the property owner got back to the original builder, and the builders filed this application.
Correct. On their behalf, the builders hired me to go do this.
Okay? No problems with it. It's vacated. It's vacant, and so
Say it again.
it's vacant. There's nothing in the
Correct.
in the easement. With that, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of case number CE 1137.
All right. A motion to recommend to City Council approval of CE 1137. It's been seconded by Commissioner Newman. Please cast your votes. And that item passes. Item 8.
This is an application, this is SB 594, application for a special permit to operate use unit 8250.15 moderate impact institutional in the I-2 district at 1211 East I-240 Service Road.
Once again, David Box, 525 Northwest 11th. This was the former AMC movie theater that has been vacant for a little while. My client is Dove Charter Schools. Dove also has additional facilities that are operating under, I believe, SP 394 and SPUD 1021. Also, you'll see that there's a middle school and high school on what was the east side of Crossroads Mall operating under PUD 1632. Much of this kind of outer ring road of Crossroads Mall has turned towards schools, and so this is a wonderful repurposing of a vacant movie theater to allow them to expand their footprint. There are no TEs.
This is Ward 4, and Commissioner Privet had to recuse for this item. Is there any comments or questions from other commissioners? I think this is a great reuse. So I'm happy to see the area start to be repurposed for other things other than commercial and retail. So, okay. I think we're just looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
All right, I have a motion from Commissioner LaForge to approve the item. Been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
That item is approved. Item 9.
This is PC 10957, application to rezone 4400 Southeast 139th Street from AA to RA2.
Hi, Ms. D. Norman, 4400 Southeast 139th Street. And I'm just wanting to rezone the property so the lot can be split and we can build a house.
Okay. This is Ward 4. Commissioner Privet, you have any questions or comments or want to lead our discussion?
Yeah, this one pretty straightforward. I didn't have any issues with. Got one that's 2 acres and one that's a little more than 3, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, 3.33 and 1.93.
Yep. Anybody signed up to speak?
I do not have anyone signed up to speak.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or? All right, I'm pretty good with it, so I'll recommend approval of PC 10957.
We have a motion to recommend approval of item PC 10957. It's been seconded by Commissioner LaForge. Please cast your votes. No, I voted. It's not registered. Show me as a yay. And that item passes. Good luck.
Thank you.
Item 10.
This is PUD 2045, application to rezone 2500 North Coltrane Road from R1, R2, and I2 to PUD 2045.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates. Address is 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Before you is a PUD to allow a mix of uses. Jared, if you go to the site plan. Currently, the site is not developed. If you're familiar with this area, there's been issues with development because of the lack of sewer capacity. That's since changed. Our client, you can see red dirt to the east of the property, developed a single-family neighborhood and has since sold that to a different developer to finish out. But we've had conversations with our neighbors around us. We believe they're in support. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We do have one TE that we'd like to delete, requesting a 20-foot setback and landscape buffer. The PUD commits to a 10-foot setback and landscape buffer on the north and east side. Given that we've talked to the owners around us and that they're not protesting us, we'd ask that we delete that TE and for your recommendation of approval.
All right, Commissioner Pennington, this is Ward 7.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a great meeting with the applicant about this piece of property. We discussed this TE specifically, and because on the north side, this property, that is under consideration today was actually purchased by the property owner to the north, so I think they're in a good position to say whether or not they want the buffer. And I'm sufficiently satisfied that we've met with the property owner to the east, so I'm okay with the TE as is. I think that this part of Ward 7, we've been looking for more development to happen along 23rd Street. I'm really pleased about the fact that we agreed to, on the architectural facade, that we're going to make sure it looks good. If you're driving past 23rd Street, should it be developed for industrial purposes too. And we'll get a chance to look at it again with a specific plan. So I think we've addressed a lot of the biggest concerns. We did take away, Mark, I was very concerned about outdoor uses. Spectator sport and concerts have been a big issue in our community. And so we did address that with some of the changes that have been made. So I'm pleased and in full support.
Did I hear you say you were good with the TE as is?
Oh, excuse me,
written?
eliminate the TE, sorry.
Okay. All right.
Leave the application as is.
All right. Gotcha. Okay. Any other questions or comments? I don't have anyone signed up to speak, so I think we're just ready for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend to City Council approval of PUD 2045.
A motion from Commissioner Pennington to recommend to City Council.
Striking TE1.
Striking TE1. That's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
Item 11 has been withdrawn. That brings us to item 12.
Item 12 is PUD 2047, application to rezone 10936 Northeast 122nd Street from R1 and AA.
Once again, David Box, 525 Northwest 11th Street. Here on behalf of the applicant, this is for the ability to mine. This is, if you can go an aerial real quick. So if you look at the aerial, this is on the river, and there are a host of additional mining operations. Jared, if you wouldn't mind going back to the zoning map. Essentially, everywhere you see an SP, outside of maybe the 496 to the east, but SP 389, SP 360, SP 543, and SP 251 are all special permits to allow mining on the river. So that's what we seek to do here. Our site is zoned R1. You can't have a special permit for that under R1. So what we've done is in the PUD essentially kept R1, but allow for the ability to mine. There is a TE1 that talks about if it were ever developed as R1, make it 5-acre lots. We're fine with that. There is a TE2 asking us to come up with the requirements in the ordinance. So what we would like to add to the TE is require for remediation, topsoil will be redistributed, leveled, and smooth. Then seed, and then we will apply seed, the proper seed varietal to spread and ensure adequate coverage. The max depth below grade of the mining operation will be 30 feet. That's consistent with what you've seen out in this area. When they are done mining, what will happen is topsoil is brought in, it's smooth, seeds are planted to ensure adequate coverage for erosion purposes. So we would propose to add that as, I guess, TE2. It is worth noting, we do already have our permit from the State Department of Mines. So we've checked all the boxes from the state level. This just allows us from the city level to move forward consistent with what you've seen out there in that area. Happy to answer any questions.
This too is Ward 7.
It's Ward 7 day. Could staff respond to David's recommendation about replacing TE2 with the language he just read?
Sure, Sarah Welch, Planning Department. We were just trying to address the second condition and what would normally be required for a special permit if they were able to apply. So I would say that if you are in agreement, then we would change TE2 to say the master design statement shall be modified to include, and then what he had just read.
Okay.
And we'll strike the rest.
But it gets at the issue that you were concerned about, Sarah, right?
Right, well, I mean, I think that Mr. Box I think we've gotten as much information as we can for how the site will be used. And so I think incorporating what he has done will help as this moves forward for mining.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am not a mining expert, so I'm
is-
depending on you to tell me if
Well,
this is not adequately addressing what the
No,
concern
I think
was.
it'll be okay. If we had backed our map up a little bit more, you would see that there are like 5 or 6 special permits all around there that all allow mining.
Okay. I'm good with it. I met with the applicant about it. It's obviously, just as Sarah said, there's a lot of these around. It's an appropriate place. So I'm in full support, and I'm prepared to make a motion if we're ready. Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval of PUD 2047. I will ask that Mr. Box read for the record the amendment to TE2.
I couldn't read my writing the first time, but I think I've deciphered it in the interim. Topsoil will be redistributed, leveled, and smoothed. Then the appropriate seed varietal will be spread to ensure adequate coverage. Max depth below grade shall be 30 feet.
Mr. Chairman, in my motion, I move that we amend TE2 to reflect the amendment that was just read into the record.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? I think our system's playing catch up. There we go. All right, that's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. And that item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 13.
Item 13 is PUD 2050, application to rezone 9321 Northwest 150th Street from R1.
Once again, David Box, 525 Northwest 11th Street. This is an application that would allow for modified R1 development, taking it to 40-foot lots, consistent with what you've seen, I believe, in PUD 2037. It's basically an R1 ZL through a PUD. Happy to answer any questions. There are no TEs.
This is Ward 1. I don't have any concerns or questions, so I'm in support of it. Just need someone else to make a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of PUD 2050. There are no TEs.
A motion from Commissioner Noble to recommend PUD 2050 to the City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes. And that item passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 14 has been continued. That brings us to item 15.
Item 15 is SPUD 1666, application to rezone 2109 Northeast 14th Street, 2113 Northeast 14th Street, and 2100 Northeast 14th Street, as well as 2104 Northeast 14th Street, 2037 Northeast 13th Street, 2100 Northeast 13th Street, and 2101 Northeast 12th Street from R1 to SPUD 1666.
Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. As you can tell by the planning director's explanation, there are quite a few properties located within this SPUD. We're going to walk you through the project, but before we do, I want DeAndre Martin to come up here. He's with Placekeepers, the developer on this project, and want him to talk a little bit about their mission and the background and how we've gotten to this point.
Good afternoon, DeAndre Martin, Placekeepers in Northeast Oklahoma City Renaissance, 1740 Northeast 23rd Street. Thank you for allowing us to come speak with you today. I represent a program through Northeast Renaissance called Placekeepers. So it's a real estate development training program for individuals who want to get into incremental development. So we see our community is changing, and we want to make sure that people that currently live there have the opportunity to participate in this economic mobility. So what we do, we have a 5-week, 25-hour training program where we train people from the very beginning to the very end of a development project. What we're proposing now is to take our program to the next level by offering hands-on experience. So right now we have a classroom-based experience, and this one will give us a chance that we'll develop properties, and each of our participants will be able to walk along with us from beginning to end to make sure that they have hands-on experience when they get to their next project. At the same time, we're taking a missing middle approach. I think we all know the affordability metrics that exist in our community today. So we think that this is a great opportunity to introduce a little bit more density to, one, attract affordability, but then also get the amenities that we're looking for in the community. Right now in Northeast Oklahoma City, we have about 900 people per mile as far as our density. And to support a grocery store, you need about 3,000 people per mile. And to get a retail establishment, you need about 10,000 people per mile. So we're a long ways away from the density that we need. So to get that, we think that we can do some responsible density by doing mincing middle, so townhouses, triplexes, accessory dwelling units, things of that nature. We've also hosted a number of community meetings. We did a cookout, and we've done 2 meetings at our office on Northeast 23rd Street. We'll continue to hold those meetings quarterly to get community members' feedback and give them updates about the project. So thank you, Mark, for representing us.
And DeAndre also knocked doors in the neighborhood to make sure that they had the opportunity to give their feedback as well. So
Thank you.
Good job.
So I wanted DeAndre to walk through that to show that this isn't a typical development project. But if you could go to the site plan, just quickly I'll note, next one, tract 1 are the triplexes that he mentioned. In the back is an ADU, and then the other ones are townhomes. And so we appreciate staff's time on this. We submitted this application quite a while ago, and there's been a lot of back and forth, both with the community that we made revisions for, and then with staff. So we've gotten to a pretty clean staff report. There are 4 TEs. We agree to 2, 3, and 4. TE1, we would ask to strike. What we've sought in the SPUD is a 90% coverage for tract 2, and that's because we're doing a townhome development that with that comes more lot coverage. But with that, we're happy to answer any questions either about the SPUD or the program, but we would ask for your recommendation of approval.
So just to clarify, the open space is provided elsewhere, just not on the individual lot.
Correct. So when you look at each one of those, there's front yard setback areas that we've tried to maintain, and so you can see the green space, and then we have the rear yard setback on all of them, so they'll all have a small backyard. But on the individual lots, we're going to cover the majority of it because it is a townhome product.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really appreciate the great work. And I just want to say, DeAndre Martin is an outstanding leader in this community, and we are so lucky to have had his leadership on this and so many other things. Placekeepers is an outstanding program that is empowering people in our own community to help us rebuild our community. And you just heard his great analysis of how we get to our really important goals of bringing great grocery stores with healthy food, bringing the retail that our community wants to see, and it doesn't happen in a responsible way that respects the character of our neighborhoods without the great work that DeAndre has led with Placekeepers. So I am fully in support of this. Fully in support of striking the TE1 because I think that we're going to need to find some creative ways to continue to build the density in this area. So I'm very pleased by the great community outreach effort that's been made. I would, just for everyone who might be watching at home, Mark, or I don't know if DeAndre wants to answer this, could you talk, we did get the objection letter in the packet. Would one of you mind just sharing with everyone how we went about addressing those concerns?
Sure.
Definitely. We did get an objection letter. As soon as we got that, we went to everyone who signed the petition, went and knocked on their door and talked to them on their front step about what their concerns are, things like that. We met with the neighbor who wrote the letter to us. She came to our office. We sat down for a couple of hours, walked through the program. She understands what we're trying to do. It might not be her favorite project, but she's definitely not, I would say, as opposed to it as before. So she recognizes who we are and that we're not just trying to come in and do a money grab, that we're really trying to take care of the neighbors in the community, and that we'll be here for a long time. And if there's any problems or anything like that, like, they know exactly where our office is and they can come talk to us. So yeah, we're very happy with the conversation that we had with her.
That's great. Hey, not as mad is really good up here, right? You all know that. Happy to take any questions before I make a motion. In that case, Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend to City Council approval of SPUD 1666 and striking TE1.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Pennington to recommend City Council SPUD 1666, subject to the technical evaluation, striking technical evaluation 1. And that has been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your vote.
I'm a yay. Voted.
Oh, what?
All right, and that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Good luck. It's an exciting program. I look forward to seeing that come about. Item 16.
This is SPUD 1700, application to rezone 3700 North Lincoln Boulevard from PUD 1740 to SPUD 1700.
Mark Zitzel, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. The site on the screen right now is the Senior Wellness Center and the Homeland Tract. This was a joint development venture that occurred several years back. And so what we're back asking for now is to allow Homeland to expand their services and offerings at this corner by putting one of their smaller service stations. If you've been to most Homelands, you'll see the gas station that they have at the front of their parking lot. Staff's recommended approval. We've had no calls, no protests, and no TEs. And so we'd ask for your recommendation of approval.
This is Ward 7. I only have one question, and
Sure.
it's just that we're not allowing any new access points. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
And the only new use, right, is just for the gas station, right? Everything
it's
else
a-
is consistent with the rest of the PUD.
It's a carbon copy of the PUD with the exception of gasoline sales. And then we're preserving all the existing driveways.
It's hard to see, but there aren't any within the boxed area. There aren't any existing
No.
drives in the boxed area, right?
No, you can see there's along 36, there's only one at the main drive in, and then there's two along Lincoln, but it's the main drive through and then the one closer to the Senior Wellness Center. So there really wasn't room to put in drives, and then there's an existing city bus stop right at the front.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Mr. Chairman, I have met with the applicant about this. I think this will be good to continue to generate more traffic for our grocery store here on 36 and Lincoln. One of the questions that I asked the applicant was about the overlay that a couple of years ago, you commissioners, you may remember, we put this overlay on Lincoln about design. And the applicant informed me that we actually exempted this property from the overlay. And my understanding, in my head though, what we did was we said that we just deemed this used to be conforming. And I think that's really interesting that we decided to just, that was the method that was used. But just worth noting as we start, sometimes when we make these decisions, thinking about, was that the right avenue to go about getting this impact? But just wanted to point that out, but I'm fully in support of this and ready to make the motion, if there's no questions.
I don't see any.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend to City Council approval of SPUD 1700.
A motion to recommend approval of SPUD 1700. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
Brings us to item 17.
Item 17 is SPUD 1685, application to rezone 3104 Northeast 82nd Street from PUD 771, C4 and AA.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, this is Victor Posas with Rock Engineering. I'm representing the owner, Arturo de Lara, and we're trying to rezone this area from AA to an I2. It's going to be a light industrial for reselling construction materials.
Okay. Commissioner Pennington, this is Ward 7.
Mr. Chairman, do we have any neighbors signed up to speak on this item?
I do not believe so.
Okay. We did receive a number of protest letters. Could you share with us? I'm deeply concerned about this application, especially given its proximity to residential properties. And we received a number of letters of opposition here. Have you met with neighbors about this issue?
I see there was an agreement between the homeowners with the owner, and it was just not to get the traffic from Bryan. So all the traffic we're going to have is from the service road. And he was also going to do the maintenance of it's a dirt road.
Is that an agreement that is in?
It was agreed with all the homeowners, yes.
Okay. And that's not included, was that made in the master design statement, a change, or You're recommending that we add some TEs that would require us?
I don't know. It was supposed to be included on this part. I don't know if they did.
Sarah, has it been?
I think we got an email. I did see an email. With the letter.
Okay. And I must have missed it, so I apologize.
I have a couple of questions too, just about the process that's going to happen on the site. You're storing Portland cement, gravel, and sand?
Yes, yes.
And to resale that?
When was it sent?
He's going to be doing, he's going to be selling concrete.
So is it a batch plant?
Not actually, no. The batch that's inside the truck.
So it's a mobile batch plant?
Yes, he's going to be loading
C-Max
gravel
truck.
and yes.
Okay. And their access is going to be off of that 82nd Street?
The frontage
or
road,
84th
yes.
Street?
Yes.
And that's a gravel road?
It is a gravel road. And he will do the maintenance of that road.
Sarah, did you have something to say on that?
Just Sarah Welch, Planning Department, regarding the access on page 3 of your staff report. It's the snippet under number 9, access, talks about the most recent proposal regarding access, which is to allow one access point onto Northeast 82nd, and that heavy trucks and equipment shall be restricted to one access on 82nd, consisting of the eastern driveway of the property going east to I-35 frontage road. Heavy trucks and equipment shall not use Northeast 82nd Street west from the eastern driveway to Bryant. Light vehicles for business and personal use may use Northeast 82nd from North Bryant to I-35 frontage road, including both existing driveways. That is the most recent proposal in the master design statement. Staff believes that 82nd Street is private, so we're not able to necessarily enforce that, but that's the way that the zoning is proposed.
So Sarah, I did miss that email, so I'm glad that we pointed that out, that they did withdraw their objections, because that was my concern. So I just wanted to make sure that in any way, because I understand that if 82nd's a private road, we can't put any requirements in the PUD regarding that, right?
I mean, you can control access through this. I'm just saying that we wouldn't, if there was a complaint from neighbors, I don't know how we would address if trucks were headed westbound towards Bryant.
Yeah.
And it's, for me, again, being surrounded by R1, having outside storage of Portland cement and sand is something that we've not allowed in the past.
But it does say in the email that the agreements were incorporated into the amended application, and I just want to ensure that that was done. And if the neighbors are satisfied, but I'm very concerned about that we would have this use next to any residential property in the first place. Any other thoughts about that?
Are they occupied homes?
I think at least some of them.
Family compounds.
Yeah, I had the same concern. I mean, it just doesn't seem appropriate next to a residence, especially with the dust and things going to be blowing, especially in the summertime.
Would the applicant be open to taking 2 weeks on this? Let's go visit with the neighbors one more time and ensure, and then let's have this conversation among some of the planning commissioners that might share my concern before we just go ahead and send it to council. If you're okay with that, I'd like to do that. That'd be just a 2-week continuance, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Yeah, that's fine, because they already agree, but that's fine.
Okay. If there's no objections from commissioners, I'd like to move to continue SPUD 1685 to the next meeting of the Planning Commission.
Thank you.
It's February 13th? Yes. All right. So we have a motion to continue the item to the February 13th meeting. That's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes. That item passes. Item 18.
Item 18 is SPUD 1683, application to rezone 1229 Northwest 26th Street from SPUD 913 UD and CBO to 1683.
Hello, my name is Holly Hunt with Sam Gresham Architects at 400 Northwest 23rd Street. Just to summarize a quick history of this property, we've been working with these clients for several years. We've had a lot of different projects come through, and basically today we are just needing to update our SPUD to the current design proposed proposal, which would be to construct a new grocery store. The idea here would be to really focus the building's architecture onto Classen, giving it this tight, dense urban feel, which I believe is part of that revitalization Plan OKC goal. The existing store then will become storage and maintain the Golden Phoenix restaurant, which is currently along the Classen side or west side of that building. And the parking lot remains. So new parking along 26th, as well as a grocery store. Basically, just some of the language from the former approved SPUD didn't match the square footage, I think was one of the issues. And we were slightly above that, like 1,200 square feet or something. As well as the closed and vacated alleyway. We had to gain a further approval from the utilities department, which we have done. Basically, that vacates entirely that alleyway. So today is just merely getting this up to date for our current proposal so we can build the new grocery store. And we're thrilled with the committee's recommendation for approval.
Commissioner Powers, this is Ward 2. Do you have any questions, comments? I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Just with the orientation of the building, it looks like you're fronting on the east side, so the back of the building will be along Classen. Typically, grocery stores, are serviced out of the rear of the building. So can you tell us a little bit about how you're treating that, I guess, west facade along Classen?
So I brought along some renderings that were actually part of the Urban Design Commission meeting that was scheduled for yesterday. We actually lost quorum, so otherwise, but their staff also recommends approval. This is the view at Classen. So how we approached that design was to address all three viewable sides of this building, west, south, and east, as primary facades. Our office is near the Asian district, and I feel like we see more and more of these big box retail developments, which are all contributing in a great way to the city of Oklahoma City. We want to do the same thing, but given that the development of the existing site has the parking on the east side of the building, it made the most sense for our main entry point to be on that east side. Even for, I would say, the safety of the patrons who come to this grocery store, the unloading and offloading is much easier than having the entry off of Classen. Furthermore, as we think about the design of a streetscape, we want to bring that density to, especially given that Classen has a great large right-of-way and thoroughfare. In our view, bringing the building toward the street actually promotes its vitality. And by creating a very beautiful landscape corridor along between the building and Classen, which maybe that's not part of anything you're looking at, but maybe you can see it here. This is like a straight-on view, and you see it again there. So, and we've actually already completed all of the drawings for the landscape plan. It'll be much more dense than that, but also a winding pathway. This will be a place for pedestrians to cross by, to enjoy, but it will also make it knowable that this is a large retail space and encourage people to come and visit. We feel like the design also contributes and complements the existing building next door, but in a more modern way. I'm happy to answer any other questions. This is also something, I know you're making a recommendation today. The Urban Design Commission is going to be probably our biggest hurdle in making that case. And should they decide, I've actually already drafted some options for adding additional entry points. The owners prefer, for safety reasons, not to have a door that opens onto Class M, but it's certainly something that can be done. We can create a new entry point if needed. And that will certainly have to be approved at that time by the commission.
I appreciate the additional explanation.
Of course.
Commissioner Powers, do you have anything?
I'm sort of in favor of the big picture here. I'm not as familiar with the details of this plan as I would like to be. This is a site that is somewhat difficult to design, I think, and develop because of the orientation, as she said, of the building and the parking being where it is and so forth. But is there anyone signed up to speak?
I don't have anyone signed up to speak on this one.
I would just say a building, especially one handled the way we have with the architectural design, is much nicer to look at than a parking lot. I think when we think about streetscapes, that is what you'd rather see, landscaping and beautiful buildings, as opposed to hot mirage above a parking lot.
I'm in
Not a nice place for pedestrians either.
I'm in agreement with that. Just to comment on the site planning and design is that, I mean, I understand what you're saying and the language you're speaking about the and parking and the grocery store use. I think the elevations that they've designed are really addressing all three sides of the class and corridor. So I'm in support of it. And I understand the UDC couldn't vote because of quorum.
Yeah,
Was
they
that
lost
the issue?
quorum
Yeah,
at the last minute.
So they'll look at that in more detail, but yeah, I think that the accents.
But their staff did recommend approval for you today. In their staff report, I brought that along in case staff hadn't mentioned that. They were recommending approval to you all today.
Much better.
That would have been the staff's recommendation to the commission, if the commission had had a chance to hear it.
Yeah.
I have one question for you. How are deliveries made to the,
Sorry, I couldn't tell who was speaking, sorry.
how are deliveries made to the store?
In the rear of the existing structure, so you can actually see it here, that's plain white wall in the lower rendering. So there's a door there, and in the site plan you can see we've got a rather wide delivery lane, and the owner has assured me the way that deliveries occur, they're all before 5 a.m., before the store even opens, and they only receive deliveries once every 3 days. So this will happen there. It will be offloaded directly with forklift. And that is actually why in the site plan, well, maybe, I don't know how detailed the drawings you have are, but the paving is actually level there, even though we will de-elevate, if you will, to the parking lot. This is all for drainage and so forth. Not only that, but we'll have all, runoff water from the roof piped and drained away into some type of detaining system.
And I'm sorry, where was that again? I missed
On the
exactly
east
what-
side of the building that's existing on the site, so on the north portion of the site, that existing structure has like it's not a loading dock because it's actually level with the floor there. So it'll be offloaded off trucks that just pull there. But then they'll be able to drive straight out there, with the addition of the new drive-through lane. They'll just have to make a curve. We've actually worked through those curves and everything with the civil engineer to make sure even an 18-wheeler can make his way out of there without having to back up and turn around. Big part of their issues right now, the owners, the grocery store is just, they need more space. So this new building becomes what the patrons see, the shiny new building, and that building becomes storage, dry and cold storage for the entire grocery store as well as the restaurant. So it will come in on that side.
So this is a sort of an expansion and reboot of the existing
Correct.
store that's attached to the Golden Phoenix building?
That's right.
I see. Which a lot of
They
people
do
don't
have
even
a-
know that's there, and it's actually a
Yeah.
really nice store.
It's a
I've
great
been in there a
store.
number of times. Yeah, so I'd love to see
Yeah.
a more
and
prominent
Golden Phoenix
location.
has grown. We've actually pulled 2 permits in the last 10 years to expand that restaurant. So they're, and the owners love the area and they're willing to really invest in this location. I will tell you also that the little portion, it's kind of an L-shaped track. The little portion that's an undeveloped neighborhood business is owned by the same client and property owner of this property. So we could be back here in another couple of years redeveloping those sites as well.
Awesome. Okay, anything else? I think we're just ready for a motion.
I'm going to move approval of item number 18, SPD 1683.
A motion from Commissioner Powers, recommend approval. City Council?
Oh,
It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. That item passes. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Commissioners.
That brings us to item 19.
This is SPUD 16. Oh, there we go. SPUD 1694, application to rezone 2121 Northwest 30th Street from SPUD 1251 and R1 to SPUD 1694.
David Box, 525 Northwest 11th Street. Here on behalf of the applicant. Also with me is Rachel Bradley. She is the executive director of CSU. The SPD before you is an application by CSU to allow for the construction of a new administrative office building and then 6 dwelling units. Jared, do you have this on the screen? Do you have this? There we go. So currently, CSU operates in that what's shown as the existing building. CSU is an organization that provides service for homeless youth. And we now live in a city where this is an emerging problem that needs to be addressed. We had a meeting this week with Councilman Cooper. The number he said was just within the Oklahoma City public school system alone, there are 2,000 youth that are now unhoused. So the need for these services are critically important. The current building only has 3 offices by which caseworkers can provide the wonderful services that CSU is providing. Additionally, within the existing building, there is space for 35 youth to sleep. It's not like an apartment building. It is more like there are bunk rooms and things like that for when you have cold like we've had over the last week. What this is going to allow for is the proper implementation of the services that CSU provides. You can see on the exhibit before you the increasing number of offices, the conference room, and then you can see what's listed as apartment. Those are shown to be 6 different dwelling units that primarily are intended to care for and house youth that also have a child. This week there was a story where an individual who is 15, has a child, was living with a parent. That parent got evicted. That person needed help. CSU did not have the ability to provide space for that individual. So this is going to be able to provide that space and, again, enhance the ability to provide the services that they already have on site. So it's a wonderful opportunity for CSU to be able to provide those services. There have been a handful of meetings that have taken place. There was a first meeting in December that was a community meeting. My understanding, I was not there. Caitlin from my office was there. Ms. Powers was there. There was a host of people, and there was a lot of anger. And I think that there's been several meetings since then, and we're moving past that. Oftentimes, as you know, there are opportunities that exist in these types of disagreements where the disagreements from a city perspective can now be met. In the meeting we had this week with Councilman Cooper, there was a assistant city manager over police. There was the director of Embark. There was a member from the Parks and Recreation Service, and I believe a member from the Homeless Alliance. So one of the things that has occurred during the pendency of this case is Embark, for I think some reason, had discontinued some bus passes. Well, after the December 31st meeting, Embark reinstated all of the bus passes that CSU was using, which is massively helpful for the people who need to utilize and access this facility. If you can imagine, if you are an individual needing to access this facility, you likely don't possess a car. You're not driving to this facility. There are, anytime I've been in a case like this in which there is a dispute, one of the knee-jerk reactions oftentimes is go put it somewhere else. There's no way you'd put this up north. Well, of course that's the case. The reason you put it here in the core of the city is that is where the people are currently located. That is where they need to be met. Also, the periphery of our city does not have adequate bus services. So you have to put facilities like this in places where the homeless are and places where the bus network is adequate to be able to allow the people to access the facility. So I'm sure there are a host of people here. I do think it's important to listen to what they say. I think a lot of what you're going to hear really isn't relevant to this SPUD, because this SPUD is not to allow CSU to operate here. This is to allow an enhancement of what they're already doing. They are on site, they will continue to be on site, and they will continue to be needed at this location. So what we hope we can accomplish through this SPUD is what I've said, the enhancement of their services. There are a handful of things that the neighbors have asked us if we could agree to, and there are. I will note TEs 1 and 2 we cannot agree to. If you look at TE 1, the way it's worded is amend the program description to specify the maximum number of youth on campus at one time is 35. We can't agree to that. Currently, 35 people have the ability to sleep on site. Unfortunately, it is likely that there will be more than 35 people that are on campus at any given time that we're going to need to be able to provide services for. So we can't agree to that. The second one asks us to modify or amend to specify security. If you look at the program description included as Exhibit E to the SPUD, we believe that we've done that. We do talk about how CSU employs 35 staff members with 20 stationed at the facility and 15 working remotely and or off campus. The campus is staffed 24/7 and monitored with closed-circuit television. Also, prior to curfew, there is a CLEAT-certified security guard that's on site. So we think we have adequately covered, the security issues that exist. And then there's a few TEs we'd like to add. One of the requests was that on the second story, any second story residential unit that would have windows, have those windows be above eye level, so we can agree to that. There was a concern about site lighting. We can agree. In the SPUD, we do, of course, adhere to the city ordinance as it relates to site lighting, but what we can do is add a sentence that says, and shall mitigate dark spots to the greatest extent possible. Then there was a question about the exterior of the building, just ensuring that we have some compatible color palette when we go to build this. And so the verbiage that we're willing to commit to is that existing building wall finish shall coordinate with the existing structure and shall be consistent and shall consist of the same neutral color palette. And then there's one additional cleanup that exists in section 1 of the SPUD underneath the listing of the use units. Currently, it says, in addition to the existing structure, there shall be a maximum of 6 dwelling units within this SPUD. I'm worried that plan review will read the words, there shall be a maximum of 6 dwelling units, and create issues with our 35 beds that we currently have. So what I would like that to be revised to read is, in addition to the existing sleeping accommodations, there shall be an additional 6 dwelling units. In talking with Ms. Powers prior to the hearing today, we do want to add an additional sentence to that says all residential units within the SPUD shall be accessory to the youth shelter 8250.7 use unit. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We very much urge you to recommend approval of this. It's a massively important project to be able to move forward with this construction to enhance the services that CSU is providing. And we're happy to answer any questions.
If I might add a quick clarification on the TEs. So the first TE The 35 came out of the, as David mentioned, was from their document. The point of that was just to identify whether it's 35 or some other number, the maximum number that could be on there. So that would be, if they were to propose a different number, that would be, in our minds, would be welcome as well. But just to have a number, that would be a maximum. And then the second one, that verbiage comes out of the program description. That is a request. Normally, you need to get a special permit for something like this. So when we do this as a SPUD, we look to the special permit language. That is directly from the special permit language describing how they would mitigate impacts on surrounding land uses and deal with the behavior of the participants in the program. So we didn't see that, at least not to the degree we felt it was addressing that fully, and that's why that was listed as a TE.
So in TE1, we cannot, there is a limitation as to how many people can be on site because we have a fire code that dictates how many people can be within a building of a certain size. So that's how we'll address that.
Can I ask a question, though, as you're saying this? Is the intention that staff is getting at is about the number of overnight youth? Because the phrasing is so broad that it's like even if you're just offering services during the day, we just can't have more than 35 people there, which doesn't sound like would be your intent.
It's on campus at any given time. So they say that there's 35 that can sleep there, although I can't remember if it was 35 plus the ones in the 6 units or not, or if it was 35 inclusive.
35 today in that existing building on
Plus
an
the
overnight
6.
purpose.
Okay. So we had understood that there were concerns about youth kind of loitering, existing in the neighborhood, loitering in the park, and so on. And we thought if there was a maximum number that they would serve at any time during the day on the campus, that might be helpful for the neighborhoods to know about.
So the issue with that for me is, first of all, it's 35 people who are able to sleep overnight in the main building currently. Then you're talking about these 6 units that are for what I think of as children with children. And we don't know whether that's a person with 2 children or 1 children or whatever. But part of the idea behind redesigning this site, which was made possible by the acquisition of another lot, most of everything that you're reading that's included in the SPUD was in the original SPUD. There's not a lot that's being added here. The acquisition of the additional lot allowed for the reconfiguration of the site in a way where they're going to have a separate office building that is going to house the services that they're providing beyond the simple residential. Most of what CSU does with residential is not on site. This is it's just a small percentage, or it is a percentage of the people that they serve. They do most of that off-site. They house them elsewhere. But this would allow the expansion, I don't like that word, this would allow the six additional dwelling units besides the main building. And that was part of the original plan. But part of the reason why the site is being reconfigured the way it is to allow the youth who are being serviced by this facility to be on site rather than to be elsewhere. It was an issue for the neighbors that they didn't have any place else to congregate besides the park down the way. And so the idea that they might be able to be here instead is not a minus, it's a plus. So I don't, maybe there is a number, and 35 is just not the right number, but I have a little bit of a problem with trying to limit it. I mean, the facility itself will set that limit. They are only able to serve a certain number of people, so. And the fire marshal, that's right.
Yeah, that's really how you're limited is, the fire code allows so many people within a structure of a certain size. So there's no number that we could agree to.
There is no number you could agree to, because for me, in looking at it, yes, there's a number, the fire code on the inside of the building, but there's also a lot of green space and other property around it. And so I'd kind of like to see a number.
explain that to me again, the green space around it?
So there could be X number of people inside a building and X number of people outside of the building. And again, remember, this is surrounded by R1.
But it will be on site and it'll be contained here. It's not going to be,
Contained.
well, with a really big fence, among other things.
There's not one today.
No, but there will be, if you look at your site plan.
So there's 8-foot fence to the west, there's an 8-foot fence along the north, and then an 8-foot fence along the east. And then, of course, you've got the building, and so you've really kind of created this almost interior courtyard situation.
So maybe what we're really talking about, rather than the person limit sounds unenforceable, it sounds very difficult for us to monitor. I don't see how that's workable. But to Commissioner Noble's point, which is about, can we minimize the disruption to our neighbors? And that's what I'm hearing you say. Is there stronger language we can use around the type of security that's being provided, at least on the front side of the property, to minimize the loitering that may occur and encourage people to be in the interior parts of this property once the redevelopment is done? Like, is there stronger language we could use to that? And I know I'm sure we have neighbors here to speak, so I don't want us to belabor too long, but I do think maybe there's a different way to go about addressing the issue.
So, I mean, like I said, it's staffed 24/7. Prior to curfew, there's a CLEAT certified security guard on site. I'm not sure what else can be done. We also have, I mean, perhaps most importantly, there is a funding component to this. I think it's better use of funds to go to providing services rather than providing, security guards. So, I mean, there is that piece that I think is important too. But we can't commit to a number on site, because of course, if we committed to a number, one, I don't know how it gets enforced, right? Two, then when we hit that number, we're telling people, sorry, we can't serve you. That will simply exacerbate the loitering aspect of it, if that is a concern.
I guess, I don't know how many of you have been to look at this, but I think that the configuration of the site and the design that's contemplated here is going to solve this problem. The courtyard will become, interior space, outside, but, interior to the site. The offices will be fronting onto 30th. There's not anything really to draw, I'm trying not to say the kids, out onto, that part of it. The number is just not workable, I don't think. And I think they're providing security on site during the day, when there's not beyond curfew, I'm okay with this.
Okay. Well, we do have 3 folks signed up to speak.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to ask one critical question that I think is important as we listen to our neighbors. To clarify, if the Planning Commission voted no today, will CSU's operation stop?
No.
So regardless of what action is taken today, CSU's operation will continue at this location?
Yes, just
okay. Just want to be clear.
Hampered to some degree.
Continue in its current, less effective way. I mean, there's, I do want to hear from the neighbors, but how I got brought into this was to be invited to a meeting of a small group of neighbors who meet regularly to discuss things. And a lot of what they had to say about what they didn't like about what was happening here had to do with the provision of services. And there wasn't enough of that, they felt. And it was, these young people were there, but they didn't have enough to do. They didn't have a way to get out of there, to go other places. There wasn't enough of what you would consider part of the case management process. Well, that constraint and the limits on that were not, by program. It's not that they didn't want to do that. They simply didn't have the room on site to provide those things. The addition of the office building is going to allow them to do that on site right here. And again, the solution with respect to the bus passes is going to allow the kids, and I keep trying not to say that, to go where they need to go, to school, to doctors, to, you know, other things that will not be provided on site. So, but yeah, we need to hear from the neighbors.
Okay. Laura Vanderwint, welcome.
Thank you. I hope you can imagine that it does raise issues for neighborhoods to have a low-barrier youth shelter bounded by 4 houses and neighborhoods. And so when this SPUD application came up, we decided that it would be a great opportunity to engage neighbors, CSU, the city, to see if we could come up with some solutions that we've been dealing with now for 3 to 4 years. And so we came up with this document, and instead of me reading it to you, I'd like to circulate it to you. And hit the high points here. We are trying to engage the city for solutions and also the neighborhoods. So some of the solutions that the neighborhoods have come up with for us to implement are re-engaging our neighborhood watches, talking with the city programs. OKCPD have programs to address crime in neighborhoods, and you can see those listed on that document. And then we also have some requests for changes at Swadek Park, some modification of the playground equipment. There's a tube slide which allows for illicit activity. You can't see any activity in the tube slide. The grill and the pavilion, you can read about that in the document. So we have a Swadek Park section. We have some requests of CSU, and that includes that CLEAT certified security be present 24/7 instead of just at the hours that they currently support. And we also request seats and voices on their board for neighborhoods surrounding the facility, Shepherd, Sequoia, and Military Park. For the city of Oklahoma City, we know that HUD funding is appropriated by the city council. And so we've asked that a certain amount of that HUD funding can be designated for a 15-passenger van so that these kids can get to where they need to be. Embark is great. It doesn't cover all of the bases. Just to get to Memorial Park, you'd have to take 3 bus lines. That's 1.5 miles away. So a 15-passenger van would serve their needs. And then other requests of the police department, more daily patrols by CSU and the park. And then we have some questions directed to the city. I don't know if you see that section. I don't want to take too much time here, but we want to know how the city defines success, and we want to know who is over this homeless initiative, particularly this shelter. And also, we have some questions for CSU regarding individuals who break their rules or their policies. How are they addressed? Are they sent to another facility? How do they get there? What mode of transportation? Those are things that have presented some problems in the neighborhood. And then we have some requests of the SPUD. The windows has been addressed. The access point on Cashin is a point of importance to us, as the neighbors directly behind the facility on Cashin have experienced unwelcome interactions. So that access point, I think, is problematic. I understand from that city code dictates that that access point is there. And I'm wondering if it could be for emergency use only and not for just daily operational use. The site lighting we've talked about, and we want the building to look good with the other buildings on the property. So I know that a lot of this is beyond the scope of you all, but I wanted you to know the scope of the issues that we're dealing with. And so that's why I have this document. And I want you to know that these issues have been part of our daily lives for 3 to 4 years. And so we're respectfully asking for this SPUD to be continued so that in good faith, the city can help us implement these changes, CSU can respond, and we can all live together a little bit more harmoniously. So we're asking for a minimum continuance of 9 months so that we can get through a warm weather period and see how things are going at Swadek Park, for instance, and in the neighborhood. And it would also give a chance for the city to address the questions that we've asked. Thank you very much. My name is Laura Vanderwint. I live at 2300 Northwest 29th in Shepherd.
Thank you, Ms. Vanderwint. Marlene Quigley.
I'm basically going to come from a neighborhood's person's view. Sorry, a little nervous. I can't stand getting in front of people. I have lived in Shepherd neighborhood for over 34 years. For the last 3 years or so, especially during warmer weather, I've watched things happen in our Swadek Park that were quite disturbing at times, and it has all been connected with youth at SISU. How do I know it's them? Because I've watched where they go. After lunch, at lunchtime they're gone, dinner, and they go, and I've seen them outside of the facility. Some of the things I've seen, without going into much detail, is urinating. Sex has happened in the park, liquor bottles, and in their youth, I've seen it. But these things are very disturbing. I do not need statistics because I live where I've had front row seat. I live close, I see it. And I know they were SISU, like I said, because I've watched. And now I hear of issues that happen in the Sequoia neighborhood, which is across 30th Street, which is right by the SISU. And this has happened for many years now, and SISU tells us, before they used to tell us that, thank you for telling us and not calling the police, and we'll talk to them. But now it's not our responsibility, and if you need to call the police, call the police. I think we can partner together better and find ways to resolve some of these issues. Recently, I've seen less activity from the SISU clientele in Swadek Park, but I'm concerned that it's only because the weather is cold, so they're not hanging out as much, and because maybe the coverage we got in November on the news. I would like to see a continuance of the SISU SPUD at this time so that we can see whether things change after some of these resolutions that we have asked about. And as far as a fence, we're talking about youth. They don't want to be behind that fence. You know, they're not going to stay where they're watched. So that's why they go to our park and hang out and do stuff. So I'm not really convinced about all this stuff you're telling me that's changing. And if they can't go inside and stay during the day, then they're going to hang out somewhere. So those are our concerns. And like I said, I know they're going to be here, and I want to work with them, but I think we should work together and look at some of the issues that the neighbors are facing. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Can I just ask you to state your address for the record, please, and your name?
Marlene Quigley, 2241 Northwest 29th Street.
All right, thank you. And then the last one I have is Sarah Ashmore. Good
Hi,
afternoon.
Sarah Ashmore, 2316 Northwest 28th Street. I would echo all of the comments from my neighbors. This has been an ongoing issue for several years now. And when we say loitering, that's like a really generic, broad term, but we're talking about people being threatened with weapons. We're talking about people being harassed. We're talking about finding used syringes in our park, public sex in the broad daylight. There's a lot of stuff going on that is not just innocuous. And again, I think what I would ask for is accountability. You know, this site was rezoned. This body approved it to be rezoned as a shelter, and I understand it's not going anywhere. I get that. And I honestly am supportive of the overall mission. I think it's a needed service in our community. And I understand that there are a lot of issues that come along with having a low barrier shelter, and the fact that those clients can't be forced into any kind of programming or services or case management or anything if they don't want it. But the issue is that then creates issues in our neighborhoods. So when we've brought issues up before, I mean, as my neighbors have stated, it's either, well, it's taking place in public space, so that's not our responsibility, or it's not taking place on our personal property at the shelter facilities, so we can't do anything about it, or we can't make them participate in services, so this is what happens. They go out, they're kids, they do what they want. Okay, but where does accountability lie? Because we as neighbors get left holding the bag, and I'm supportive of what they're trying to achieve, but I would also echo everybody's request that this issue is continued until we're actually able to resolve some of the existing issues before we just say, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and expand and add these additional facilities. I understand that maybe this was included in the original expansion or the original rezoning application or what have you. But, you know, I heard you talk about concerns about dust and traffic in a residential neighborhood, and we're talking about much bigger issues in a residential neighborhood that there is no enforceability of it. Like the city, I mean, you guys don't really have any enforcing abilities for keeping these things from happening. And it sounds like the city doesn't really either. And so who do we turn to when we need somebody to stop some of these things from happening? If we can't come to agreement with the organization itself, where do we turn to? Do we just move? I mean, that's kind of where we're at. So I would really strongly encourage you all to continue this for several months until we're able to find some additional resolution to ongoing issues that we've been having. So thank you for your time.
I do have a quick question for you. Is there any kind of organized neighborhood organization?
It's my understanding there is a neighborhood organization. I've lived in this neighborhood for almost 5 years, and we've had one meeting. And it wasn't, I mean, we don't meet regularly, so I wouldn't say that we are organized personally.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry, do you live in Shepherd or in Sequoia?
Shepherd.
So the answer to your question is, I think Shepherd has an active neighborhood association. Sequoia does not. It formed an active neighborhood association some years ago, but it dissipated. I mean, as we all know, very often those kind of organizations form around crisis, you know, and then when it's resolved, or Sequoia is much more absentee landlord than Shepherd is. Shepherd's an HP, it's got, you know, its own thing. And then there's Military Park, which is nearby, so. One of the neighborhoods is much more organized than the other. I think, I guess all of the people who come here to speak this afternoon are from Shepherd. And there may be some disagreement between the neighbors and their neighborhood leadership. The people that Mr. Box didn't mention that were at the meeting earlier this week, was that just earlier this week? My God,
Tuesday.
it seems like a week ago. Were the neighbors. There were representatives from the neighborhood who came to speak, and not just, you know, hand-selected, they're on our side kind of people, but folks who had some real serious issues. So what I would say about what's happening here, and from my introduction at this small neighbor meeting with people who have been dealing with this and talking about this for a while now, I went from there to calling up CSU and saying, I want to come tour your facility and get the tour and hear the whole thing. And, you know, I'm not a religious person, but I'm telling you, they are doing God's work. And it is amazing to me. I mean, it's just mind-blowing to me that this is the only youth shelter in a city, a metropolitan area this large. I mean, it's not even just Oklahoma City. It's, you know, and on any given day, they have a limit of, you know, like 100 people that they can help. So I think there are opportunities here for us to get a template in place for how, these kinds of facilities ought to be interacting with their neighbors, because we need more of them. We need a lot more of them. There's a very real need. But at the meeting on New Year's Eve, as Mr. Bach said, the police chief was there. The head of Parks Department was there. The head of Embark's kind of special programs was there. The head of Key to Home was there. We now have brought on board Ashley Oso, is she here? There she is, who's going to do the community outreach part of this, and they're going to get, much more organized and serious about that. It's difficult to do community outreach with a neighborhood that's not very organized, as you know. It's just harder. But so we're kind of half and half on that. Most of the issues and problems that the neighbors were expressing, both to me at the meetings that I have attended with the small group and also at the big meeting that we had, where there were, I don't know, at least 100 people there, some really angry people there. But most of the issues that they were experiencing, they were focusing that attention on CSU, that CSU needs to do this, CSU needs to do that. They need to solve this problem, they need to solve that problem. And sometimes this is how they need to solve it. Which, I think we all know is not the best way to go about that. Many of the issues that were raised were better, addressed by the Parks Department and the Police Department and the, Key to Home. So there are programming concerns that are tied to funding and so the idea that they shouldn't be allowing people from 15 to 24 to come to this shelter. It's like, well, it's a youth shelter. That's how they work. That's what they are. The idea that it shouldn't be a low barrier facility. It should have barriers. They should have to do this or this. It's like, well, that's not how that program works. And Key to Home is adamantly opposed to that approach. It's home first, stabilize, and then deal with services and so on. So there are some things that are not going to change, but that doesn't mean that the impacts on the neighboring community can't be addressed. What I have assured the neighbors and have pledged my participation in is that the city is fully engaged in addressing these issues, moving forward, figuring out where they can pull funding to address these things on a really micro level, not, and macro level, I guess, both. And so I am not in favor of continuing this. It needs to move forward. There's some time between, we met on New Year's Eve, we met again this week. It's hard to get people, department heads, that many of them in a room all at once. It's not like you just snap your fingers and they all show up. But there will be meetings, I feel confident, between now and council, where the neighbors will be represented. There will be community outreach ongoing in the process, and not just between now and then, but ongoing. I mean, this is going to be a long-term, long-haul thing, and I'm all in, so.
I definitely want to, I appreciate that, Commissioner Powers, and obviously I think all of us share a strong support for CSU's mission, but I really do empathize with our neighbors who have experienced these significant challenges where they live. I'm wondering if, one, I'm glad to hear that Ashley is going to be helping with the community outreach. I hope that this will mean that our neighbors will have a person to specifically go to when they specifically have issues, and then that part of the programming that CSU offers might tell their participants or potential participants that are coming in, give them instructions about places to go or not to go. Like, I agree with the point that we don't want them to just be passing the buck of responsibility onto the city completely just because they're city-owned places. Like, there are some specific communications that can be made to those participants about where they could go and not go. I think the danger of a continuance is that building this different facility is going to allow us to better alleviate the issues that neighbors are concerned about. But again, I am very concerned about what they're facing and
As
want to
am
see
I.
those conversations continue and for us to keep thinking of more solutions. I think it's a good idea to consider adding a neighbor to the board. Obviously, we can't dictate that in zoning. This is about land use. It's not about that stuff, but I think it would be a really good show of good faith for them to deliberately include the neighbors in their decision-making.
And I think, I agree with that, but I also think that it is a good idea for there not just to be a person who's on the board, or even if it's 2 or 3, but rather that the communication is going back to the neighbors and to the neighborhood. So, gotta be, absolutely.
And I'll just say this for me, that I would like to see that happen sooner than later and happen with the community outreach that they're going to be able to do. And if I'd heard that today, that the community was already in touch with them, and I'd be more supportive. And so I either need to have a deferral today or I'm going to vote against this.
Just to remind you, the only thing that we're really voting on today
I totally agree.
is the office
You keep
building.
saying it's not expansion, yet all I see is expansion. So that's my thoughts.
I'm the same way. I don't see how this is not an expansion. It's larger, or whatever the word is. You said that the addition will only alleviate the problems. I don't see that either. I think whatever issues there are, they're going to be bigger. More people, more stuff. It's going to be bigger. I don't see it
There
alleviating
won't be more
yet.
people on site. Other than the construction of the family units, they're not going to house more people on site.
In fact, it's a reduction. The current SPUD would allow 16 additional residential units.
On the current
current
site?
zoning today. Now, we couldn't build the administrative office to allow the services to be provided, but instead we could just go max out the site and build 16 more residential units.
That's fine.
And I understand that, yes, we're adding on. The expansion, it makes it sound like there are going to be more people, on site on a semi-permanent basis, and that is not occurring. But the addition of the office building will permit the provision of those services that are so desperately needed on site. And I think that is a plus, not a minus. If I didn't think so, I wouldn't be in favor of it.
Right, I can maybe get there. Just not right now with the information I have at that location. It's a big city, the services are needed, it's needed somewhere. But that is a lot of houses bordering this site, just immediately adjacent, much less the rest of the neighborhood. This is not where I would choose to set a expanding, larger youth services facility, whether it's offices, residences, whatever it is, up to 24 years of age or whatever I'm hearing. Those are actually not children anymore at the age of 24. So this is not where I would choose to have any youth services, especially a much larger expansion of what's going on there. Unless we take some more time, and it's got to be a lot better before I could be for it. It's still not there for me either.
May I ask, what is lacking?
All of the things that the neighbors, I'm not even calling them protesters, they're not protesting, they are neighbors that have concerns. All of their concerns are my concerns.
And what I would say, though, is nothing about rejecting or deferring the SPUD addresses that. Allowing the SPUD to move forward in a manner that allows the administrative office to be building begins to solve those concerns. That's the only way we can get there.
I don't agree, and then what's occurring there now maybe should have never happened in the first place is all that's telling me, and so unless it's going to solve it, I'm not for continuing with what's been going on there with additional, it doesn't solve it yet for me. More time, maybe it will, but not at this time. I don't see how the situation is alleviated and resolved.
We don't have the ability to delay. The services are needed now. We got to move forward.
And what that says to me is that maybe a different location would be better than if it is a desperate need, it needs to be done, maybe just not here. It may need to be somewhere else.
One of the things I heard was just all the stuff that's going on in the park. And you said the police chief was at the meeting? Did he have, did he offer up additional patrols or resources or anything of that nature?
All of the above,
Okay.
yes.
And the reason I asked about the neighborhood association or organization is through Neighborhood Alliance, there's contacts with, there's a neighborhood liaison officer, or several rather, that communicate with neighborhood associations. And, there's that resource, and often what you see is additional patrols in the neighborhood.
And they hosted our meeting, our large meeting, so, yeah, they're involved.
So, I see that as a major component of.
I can tell you, everybody's at the table. Everybody is at the table. I think for a long, long time, the neighbors were not being able to communicate with the people that could solve their problems. Now they are. They were sort of internalizing. The park is a public park, you know what I mean? And many, many, many public parks have issues with respect to the people who utilize them. And I don't mean that to minimize the issues here at all. But at our first meeting on December 31st, the head of the Parks Department said she'd never heard a word of an issue at Swatow Park from anyone. So I think part of it is just communication. I think there is very real commitment to resolving these issues moving forward. As I said, both micro and macro, on a big scale. Everybody that needs to be at the table is at the table, including the neighbors, so.
Okay, well, I think we just need to see where we are if somebody's ready to make a motion.
Well, I'll move for approval of item number 19, SPUD 1694.
With
In commission with the TEs,
So
right?
deletion of TE1, deletion of TE2. We'll add TE3 where we add the language, any new residential structure shall have above eye level windows on the second floor where abutting residential property. In the lighting section, add the following, and shall mitigate dark spots to the greatest extent possible. Add the language, exterior building wall finish shall coordinate with the existing structure and shall consist of the same neutral color palette. And then a modification of section 1 within the SPUD to say, in addition to the existing sleeping accommodations, there shall be an additional 6 dwelling units. All residential components of this SPUD shall be accessory to the youth shelter 8250.7 use unit. That last piece is a replacement of the language in section 1 that states, in addition to the existing structure, there shall be a maximum of 6 dwelling units within this SPUD.
And I do want to point out that all of those, the cap on the number of additional dwelling units was mine, but the others, TEs that are being added, were in direct response to specific requests from the neighbors, so.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Powers, subject to the technical evaluations as read in by the applicant.
I don't have a thing that I can push.
Switch your screen.
Refresh.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, my bad. Technology.
Okay, that's been seconded by Commissioner Pennington. Please cast your votes. He's gone. Okay, that item is recommended for approval. So this does go forward to City Council. So the neighbors, you have another opportunity to attend City Council and share your concerns at that meeting. They'll have the final approval. We are due for item 20.
Item number 20 is SPUD 1701, an application to rezone 15901 North Rockwell Avenue from SPUD 1614 to SPUD 1701.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates. Address is 1 East Sheridan Avenue. You can go to the, actually go back real quick. This is an SPUD that you all approved a year ago for a daycare use. That user walked away post the rezoning, and now the owner of the property is seeking to develop it. Looking at this map, what you'd see is the owner is part of the Total Environment Group, which has the agricultural land to the north of us. That's a tree farm, the plant nursery, and as you go further north, they were part of developing that gas station and PUD 1829 and 1698. And there's office warehouse there, and they're very attractive buildings and well landscaped, as the developer owned a landscape company. And so we're seeking to bring that use into 1614. So it's a pretty identical spud to what was previously approved, except we've added in the light industrial and the warehousing use unit. So if you can go to the spud, the site plan remains relatively unchanged. The site has significant constraints in that there's an oil well directly behind us and a 100-foot wide pipeline that runs diagonally on our tract and then into the neighborhood. So to our south, those homes that would be closest are actually separated by that 100-foot pipeline that we're not allowed to build over. We're only allowed to cross over, which is how you end up with a layout similar to what we're showing. So in terms of TEs, we agree to TE1 regarding the sidewalks. If anything was damaged, we would replace it. We would ask to strike TE2. That's asking us to remove the light industrial and warehouse use. That's the reason for the SPUD. So because of that, we can't agree. But other than that, I'm happy to answer any other questions. We would ask for your recommendation of approval.
Thank you. Commissioner Noble, this is Ward 8.
Is anyone signed up to speak on this?
I do not have anyone signed up to speak.
And there were no protests. I did meet with the applicant, and we talked over it. I don't really have any concerns over the light industrial and the warehousing use in this property. I think this is going to be a very hard piece of property to develop into something, and giving that and having the additional type of use would help in that regard. So if any other commissioners have anything on that.
Well, just one of the things I wonder if we consider is if we could put a TE on it for basically the western portion on the west side of the oil rig, and on the south, basically where it's buffered by from the residential. There's no industrial uses in that area.
Yes, other than a service road that will access the oil well, we're fine limiting, maybe the TE could be.
So it could be to the front, basically the usage shall be limited to the front half of the property.
Yeah, so the east half
yes,
is developable from the fence of the oil well site back, no development.
Yeah.
We're fine with that.
Okay.
And we can work with staff to craft that final language just to make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Create 2 tracks maybe, or
Yeah.
I think we've done it before where we just basically strike a line and we don't need 2 tracks to do it.
Maybe TE2 could be denoting on the site plan developable area versus non-developable, and then we'll note it on here and reference that in a TE.
Okay.
But it'll be right where that fence line is for the oil well site.
Yep.
Or with permission, we would just calculate the eastern so many feet where it would be allowed, if that's okay.
Sure. Either way.
Okay.
do you want to create that TE somehow, or do you just want me to say what you said?
I think you would just amend TE2 to allow the 2 uses listed, which are light industrial and the wholesale storage and distribution on the west half of the property.
East half.
On the east half of the property.
Okay. Anything else? With that, I'd like to recommend approval of SPUD 1701 with T number 1 and T number 2 with the addition of the inclusion of on the east half of the property.
Does that get us there, Sarah? I don't want to have an issue before we get to council.
Yes, I know what we're saying. We're striking the very first part of TE2, leaving the uses and just saying those 2 uses would be allowed on the east half of the property, right?
So light industrial, 8350.8, wholesaling, storage, and distribution restricted shall be allowed on the east half of the site.
Of the subject site.
Of the subject site.
yeah, we're great with that. Thanks.
All right, that's been recommended for approval by motion by Commissioner Noble, seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
Unanimous, thank you. Item 21.
Item 21 is SPUD 1702, an application to rezone 1500 Northwest 46th Street from R1 Single Family to SPUD 1702.
Howdy, y'all. I'm Sam Day, 1620 Northwest 17th Street. So, client bought these 4 lots or 2 typical city parcels a couple of years ago. They are 6,800 square feet, just under our generous minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet. So in order to build here, since we're buying 2 together, we need a SPUD in order to build 2 houses on these lots. So here's our proposal. We have some kind of font mismatch, but we're building right in the same grade as the existing neighborhood. It's just that these were platted at 42-foot lots. The minimum lot size is 50. Lot width is 50 in OKC, and they are just under the minimum lot size because of that. So we're still planning on 2 single-family homes, 1 on each lot, just like the rest of the neighborhood has gone.
I can't see on your site plan kind of the outline of the residence immediately to the west, but on that innermost lot,
Yeah, do we
how
have
does
it?
how does that, I guess, setback from the front align with the house to the west?
It's the same. So 25 feet is the existed platted setback. Yeah, so we're just increasing that 5 feet, or we're proposing that. We're not writing that into the SPUD. We're proposing that in the design in order to kind of give a view to the park from, make them both kind of feel like corner houses. But yeah, that's consistent with the existing setback.
So it aligns with the home
Yeah,
to the west?
we're not changing the front setback.
Commissioner Powers, this is your ward.
Yeah, I had visited with the applicant. Sarah, what's the minimum lot size for R1?
Or 6,000. Yeah, we're at 5,800, I think.
It's 6,000 square feet for a single family
Yes.
or
That's what I thought it was. Okay, so, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I think this is, my question to the applicant was why this configuration rather than the one facing 46, one facing McKinley. He satisfactorily responded to that, to my, I think it's fine. It looks a little odd, but I think it's going to be fine. Residential infill is a good thing. Is there anybody signed up to speak?
I don't have anyone signed up.
Any of the commissioners have thoughts or comments or questions? If not, I'm going to move to approve item number 21, SPUD 1702.
I have a motion from Commissioner Powers to recommend approval of City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes. That item is recommended for approval. Thank you.
all.
Good luck. Item 22.
Item 22 is SPUD 1703, an application by City Care to rezone 100 North Allen Street from SPUD 978 to SPUD 1703.
Mark Zitzow, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. If you could go to the site plan. David did the heavy lift for me earlier in addressing the need of unhoused individuals in our community. And so this property lies between Villa and General Pershing where it bends. And so in this area, the Homeless Alliance City Care, they own a significant amount of property. This is near the night shelter, and it's near the schools that provide education opportunities for unhoused children. So on this parcel, what we have proposed is a series of fourplexes. There's a sanitary sewer line that runs through the middle, which is how the parking lot ended up in its configuration. We have no TEs. Staff has recommended approval, and we have no protests, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
This is Ward 6. Commissioner Govine, you want to lead the discussion?
Sure, yes, I've visited with the applicant. I'm in full support of this. I think it's a good infill development, providing transitional housing. It's in an appropriate location. I think they've made some good moves to address the street, provide sidewalks, walkability, add some parallel parking even. Dumpsters are screened and 50 feet from adjacent residential. So I think it's a great project. I don't have any questions, but open it up to others if they do.
All right, anything else? I do not have anyone signed up to speak.
I will move to recommend approval of SPUD 1703.
A motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Thank you all.
Are we going to get you out of here in plenty
That
of
item
time?
passes. All right, item 23.
Item 23 is SPUD 1704, an application to rezone 4400 Northwest 50th Street from R1, O2, and SPUD 846 to a new SPUD 1704.
David Box, 525 Northwest 11th Street. Here on behalf of the applicant, as Sarah said, this site has 3 separate zonings on it, O2, R1, and a SPUD. So our purpose here is to do a O2-based SPUD with limited office uses. We think it's consistent, compatible with what you would see now along a major arterial like 50th, right off of Meridian. There are no TEs. Happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Powers, this is Ward 2.
Another case consumed our time.
But yeah, I think this is a good use of this property. I really do. So I don't have any issues with it at all. This is part of Oklahoma City I grew up in, so I'm fairly familiar with it.
I drive by it every day.
Well, do you have anything you want to contribute?
No, I think I think this corridor could use some new redevelopment on it, so I think it's a good thing.
Okay, I agree. So, anybody signed up to speak?
No.
Any of the commissioners have any comments, questions, or concerns? If not, I'm going to move approval of item number 23, SPD 1704.
A motion from Commissioner Powers, seconded by Commissioner LaForge. Please cast your votes.
Thank you.
And that item is recommended for approval. Item 24.
Item 24 is SPUD 1699, an application to rezone 50-41 Northwest 10th Street from the C3 Community Commercial District to SPUD 1699.
Good afternoon. My name is Duke Nguyen, and I represent the property owner, Samuel Kim. He has a business located at 5241 Northwest 10th Street, currently being zoned C3, and he would like to have it rezoned to SPUD 1699 to open a car dealer. And his model is comparable with the mix of business in that area. Within half mile of his location, there are already existing 5 car dealers. And from where he is, about
If you could just pull that microphone a little bit closer.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. Okay. His property is located at 5241 Northwest 10th Street. It's currently being zoned C3, and he would like to rezone it to SPUD 1699 to open a car garage, a car dealer. And right now in his vicinity, there are already existing 5 car dealers. And from within half a mile, there are 7 car dealers. And within 1 mile, there's 11 car dealers. So his business model is very comparable to a business mix in that area. One thing that he would like to bring to that area is different than any other car dealer. He would have a good mix of domestic car as well as European car. At this particular location, there will be no salvage car. It's only car ready for sale. all the maintenance, all the repair is going to be done at his existing garage that's located on Northwestern Avenue, where he repair all the European car at the Northwestern. So he want to bring this model to this market. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Meek, this is your ward.
Yes, sir. I tried to give you a call and visit with you about this before today. I haven't been able to talk to you till now. Do we have anyone signed up to speak?
I do have one person signed up.
Okay,
yes.
I'll want to hear from them next, but we do have a couple of protest letters been sent in. Have you met with any of the protesters that are?
No, I haven't met, but I read it. One protest comment is about the appearance.
Right.
And certainly whatever that we do will comply with the city code.
Well, one of my concerns is your site plan lacks any information on parking lines. It doesn't even show the gasoline canopy or the gas pumps.
Yes, it's no longer operable.
Right, but.
Yeah, they no longer operate the gas station there.
Right, I understand that, but you're asking for a SPUD, and this is just the simplest way I can explain it. That's special zoning, but we're asking you to give us, I want more information about what you're going to be able to do to clean this facility up.
Yes, I can provide the fence. Put on the drawing, provide you the fence, yes.
Okay, but every little bit of information regarding your parking lines, the area you're going to store cars, where customers, dumpster, whether or not the canopy's coming down, whether or not the gas pumps are being removed, any kind of facade improvements. That's what my recommendation today is, to try to get more information and defer this to a later date. Also, so that you can speak with the people that have wrote in protest letters, which one of them is a group that's trying to improve this area.
Yeah.
So with that being said, unless the commissioners have something else, I'd like to hear from the person signed up to speak.
Well, just because I'm on the same topic as you, I think a site plan that at a minimum shows how many cars would be stored on site with kind of a clear parking layout that shows that you can get in and out safely.
Yes, I can provide that at a later date.
We need to see that.
I just want to make sure that SPUD can be approved before the owner can spend more money on the designing of the lots, yeah.
Right, with more information, we possibly could get there, and with you and hearing from the neighbor and meeting with the other people that are concerned, and telling and promising people and showing us in a site plan of what your plan is, will help get it possibly approved.
Yes.
More specifics.
Okay, we want to hear from, Robin Jones?
Thank you much.
Robin Jones. I happen to be the director of, that is loud now, in the West 10 District, which is the Northwest 10th Street corridor from I-44 to County Line Road. I also live in the area, Robin Jones, 1508 North Markwell Place, and it's over by Lake Overholser. As was referenced, West 10, which is made up of local businesses, residents, nonprofits, pretty much everybody in that area. We are really striving to improve that area in so many ways, whether it be visually appealing, economic development. In fact, just recently, we had the opportunity to invest over $1 million of store frontage improvement from the Alliance of Economic Development in that area. So we're really committed to visually appealing improvement. And I know that's kind of generic and not really city planning talk, but I'm sure you get what I mean. And he referenced those many other auto shops. Well, I don't want them there either. I mean, if I could show you picture after picture of those other auto places, probably half of them just make me cringe when I walk by. I will say, and I don't have the actual details in front of me, I did not know there weren't going to be any salvage cars, because that's what I understood was being presented. We are definitely against that. So I just am here to represent there's two businesses and many others that didn't write in that we would like to, I don't know if it's a continuance or get more information, but anyway. Does anyone have any questions? It's more common language than necessarily city planning legal language, but.
Oh, no, that's good enough. Robin, my question is, one, I agree that a continuance is necessary. There definitely has to be a conversation. I think it would be important for you to keep in mind, I don't necessarily have an objection to the use. I have an objection to the layout. I have an objection to them making sure that it looks good and is reflective of this investment that the Alliance has made and the efforts that you are making to improve the area. So I hope that a conversation can help us address some of those things. But I guess that's all I'm sharing is I'm fully for the continuance and really think should work on the site layout versus saying this is not an appropriate use.
I agree with the continuance, but one of the more, I've been involved in a project exactly like this that was to me this is a change of use, but instead they still have the gasoline cells in the use list they're requesting. Well, it's my opinion that's been left in there so that they don't have to remove pumps, remove tanks, remove canopies, but yet he's standing here telling us that it's going to be automotive repair and sales. And to me, you don't do that at a gas station. It's either one or the other. And so it does open a can of worms. I understand my concern here, but I am also about improving the area. So I would request of the applicant that I want to see in black and white and you can work with staff on this before the next meeting. I want to see in black and white exactly what your intent for this facility is, and if the intent is automotive sales and repair, then I'd like to see the gasoline cells removed and improvements to the site, because this is a change of use, and that's the only time that us or the development, permit department has a chance to improve an old, rundown location.
And Commissioner, let me make sure, and are you also like Commissioner Pennington, though, that you would be okay with auto sales and auto repair in certain circumstances, making sure that we're not against it entirely, they do all that, and then we come back and say we don't want this to be auto sales and auto repair.
Right.
I think we're all generally open to the use potentially. Yes. Okay.
I think the uses they're requesting are too broad. It's either automotive sales or it's a convenience store. It's either automotive sales or it's a gas station. I believe that the list of requested uses is too extensive also.
And the site plan is critical.
And the site
plan. Again, they made these investments.
Right.
They want 10th Street to look great. It should. We should honor that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so the things that I wanted to make sure that were discussed and clarified was if there's no salvage cars, that's included in there. No salvage shall be permitted on site, no repair. I think the cleaning and repairs light equipment is okay. Because I think you're detailing, cars after purchase. But yeah, I think most importantly is, putting a maximum number of vehicles to be allowed and making sure that they're set back from the street.
Right.
No parking of vehicles is allowed.
Right.
Within setbacks. So, things of that nature.
Right.
Well,
I agree.
And I'm not an expert, but to me, it just seems like a really small property to have much of car sales. But I'm not technically, assessing that.
Have you been on 39th Street Expressway?
I'm not saying they look good either, but yeah. No, but this is much smaller than anything on 39th Street.
No, there's some lots on 39th that are like 50 feet across that they're making into car dealerships. Okay.
But even on a site like this, I will say from personal experience, you can find a place to put some landscaping, believe it or not. So,
right.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Actually,
Right. I mean, I know I go too far with some of these things, but if this, sir, if this zoning is approved and you want to do what you want to do, all of this is going to be required anyway. A site plan, parking plan, landscape plan, all this stuff to get a permit. You can't just go there once you get this zoning approved and open up. And so basically, we're asking for a little bit more information up front.
Mr. Newman, I'm going to ask you to come back up to this podium here because we're going to have a question for you.
I want to add something to that as it comes up, and to Commissioner Powers' point about some landscaping would be good. And if adding landscaping, your answer is, well, there's not enough room for landscaping to then sell cars, then the problem might be that the lot's too small.
Right.
I won't be sympathetic to there's not enough room for landscaping. It would be, so yeah, okay.
Yeah, and we did hear from him that we asked what improvements he's going to do, and he offered up a fence. Well, fences aren't always, you know, the best answer either, but that's what we're asking. We have no information on this site plan. So what you're wanting to do, we need to know.
Yes, I will certainly revise the plans for you to see the more details.
Okay.
Right now, based on his business model, he can have no more than 15 cars, you know, probably about 10 to 15 cars because of his budget and the type of car that he carries. So most likely it's going to be 10, the maximum is 15. But as far as frontage, we have about 200 feet wide, okay, and the total area is about half an acre. So I think that's adequate for those number of cars.
Okay.
And certainly we will revise the plan for you to see the fan, the landscaping if needed, and then we're going to take out the dispenser, so on and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, and you do know it does say the business requires to meet other conditions for auto sales and repair.
Yes, we can certainly revise the master plan.
The limit of 10 days.
Cars dealer, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
And sir, you're going to exchange contact information with Ms. Jones back there so that you all can make sure that you've met with the businesses that have
Yes,
concerns, because we're going to want to hear that you all have talked through this. Okay.
And I will call you again
Yeah.
and we can visit. Okay.
So I think the question is, we're looking at a February 13th.
Okay.
So are you open to continuing this till February 13th, coming back on the 13th with more information? Do you need more time to get that information together?
February, so 1 month from now?
Yeah, about 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
About 3 weeks.
It's doable.
Okay.
It's doable. From down to 10, I will supply additional information, and we'll.
Okay.
All right. It sounds to me, just in order to get it to us so that we get it in our packet, we need it by the 5th. So now you're looking at 2 weeks.
Yes.
That's doable?
Yes, doable.
Okay. All right. So I think the motion is just to continue to the 13th.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to recommend deferral to February what?
13th?
13th.
Day before Valentine's Day.
All right. I have a motion to continue the item.
Thank you.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm a yay.
All right, and that item is continued. Item 25. It was deferred. All right, item 26.
Item 26 is a resolution of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission adopting the Vision Zero Action Plan.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Monica Powell. I am here on behalf of the City Planning Department, but I work for Kimley Horn and Associates. We are the primary consultant on this project, and we're here to provide a project update. We were here, or I should say, Justin was here at the last commission meeting. Apologies, we cannot control the snow sometimes. But we are back and here to round out this process, and we are going to be looking for a motion at the end of this presentation to recommend this plan for approval to City Council. So just as a little bit of recap, we were here on January 9th where we introduced the plan. We covered high level all of the elements of the plan and walked through the process as well. We did receive input and we sent the revised plan on January 16th to the city staff. We took input from city staff, planning commission, the advisory board, and as well as the public. And we are here today to consider a motion for approval. So just up top, we're going to cover a couple of overarching elements just to kind of recenter. But the mission statement of the Vision Zero Action Plan is the City of Oklahoma City aims to eliminate road fatalities through strategic infrastructure enhancements, policy advocacy, and inclusive education. The city is dedicated to protecting all road users and promoting a sustainable and vibrant community. This mission statement was created by our Vision Zero Advisory Board after our first meeting, and it's just been kind of our North Star for this process. So we started back in last February, so almost exactly a year ago, and we are here in January of 25. We have produced the public draft, which was submitted online and posted for public comment in December. Like I mentioned, we did receive many public comments that we responded to, and the final version was sent just last week, so here's where we are. So the outline, I'm not going to walk you all through the full outline this time, but today we are going to focus on part 3, which is most of our recommendations. So chapter 4, Designing the Solution, is about engineering recommendations in the form of countermeasures. And then chapter 5, called Getting to Zero, this is our implementation plan and outlines policy and program actions. You can go to the next slide. So starting with our safety countermeasures, last time we just walked y'all through the high level, but there are 3 kind of buckets of countermeasures that we recommended in this project. The first is systemic countermeasures, which act as more of a toolbox of recommended improvements, things that are proven to increase user safety of all modes. So these are recommended for deployment across the network or across the system. The targeted countermeasures are specific locations. We had 7 total study corridors that totaled 15 miles in length that we walked along with city staff. We pulled crash reports and we made detailed recommendations and schematics, which we'll walk through in just a moment. And then as well, those countermeasure exhibits are serving as a more detailed for specific intersections along those corridors. So we have broad getting into more specific recommendations. So like I mentioned, these systemic countermeasures are more of a toolbox. Not all countermeasures are recommended for every road. There are different contexts that these countermeasures belong in. The table that is on the slide here outlines all of the countermeasures that are recommended in this plan. But like I said, we are not recommending these completely system-wide. There are different contexts and areas that are more appropriate and suitable for different countermeasures. But there are several, but these are all recommended by FHWA as proven safety countermeasures, which means that there is national research supporting that they do increase safety and decrease crashes. Our targeted countermeasures, like I mentioned, are along 7 corridors throughout the city. These were chosen from something called the High Injury Network, which we covered last time, but the 7 locations are spread out across the city and the different wards. This is an example image here from corridor number 2, which was Northwest 23rd Street. And this details the level of detail that we have on the countermeasures. So you can see each of those icons are the recommended improvements in order to increase safety based on the corridor's crash history and current conditions. So then lastly, going into the recommendation exhibits, this is an example of what these exhibits look like. We do not have these for every intersection. There are 6 of the 7 corridors that have these exhibits, but the goal here is to provide more detail for some of the more complex designs, how this would lay out, and also get the city prepared from a project readiness standpoint when going after grant applications in order to obtain some outside funding for these improvements improvements, because we know that some of this requires money that can't just be waived with a magic wand. So in total, we had about 11 schematics. We did add one since the last meeting where we reviewed the plan. So one was requested to be added along Northwest 23rd Street. But this roundabout schematic was in the initial plan. This is along that same corridor that was on the previous slide. So just an example of what these schematics look like and the value that they bring. So since then, we wanted to walk y'all through an example of some of these recommendations and schematics. So we chose Penn Avenue because it has a different context compared to Northwest 23rd. So we just wanted to walk through quickly what this analysis, what the steps were, what the recommendations were, and walk through those schematics. So our analysis showed from Penn that there's a high density of driveways with no median or center turn lane. This makes it difficult when people are making left turns, especially accessing those developments, can cause lots of rear end crashing, which we saw in the data. There's concerns as well of pedestrian conflicts at oddly placed crossings or lack of crossings in general, especially along the trail there. There's potential for innovative roundabout design at Grand Street to account for the trail crossing and the boulevard-like road design. We have two directional roads and the trail crossing all combining at this intersection at Penn. There's also a little bit of a misaligned intersection that we wanted to correct in order to make those movements a little bit more predictable so that drivers are aware of their surroundings and not making conflicting movements that could lead to a crash. So the first is that innovative intersection design. We colloquially are calling this the bean about, but it is a roundabout. So this is the schematic that we drew for, and this is for Grand/36th Street intersection. The current conditions of this are that there is the trail crossing down the middle of that boulevard. There is no crosswalk at all currently delineated for those pedestrians. So while the presence of the trail is extremely beneficial, the lack of crossing and the dual intersection design, it made it unpredictable for drivers. That they may be looking the wrong direction and not seeing pedestrians coming, or they may be looking at pedestrians and missing cars. So we wanted to create a design here that slowed drivers down a little bit so that they're more aware of their surroundings, and also provided delineated crosswalks for all trail users or other pedestrians in the area as it connects to the nearby corners. Also, excuse me, one more point. We wanted to highlight for these different schematics. So a roundabout of this design has a crash modification factor, or CMF, of a 0.583, which means that we can expect about a 41.7% reduction in crashes. So this is an extremely effective, one of the highest amounts of reductions that you can expect from intersection design. So the impacts are really great in this area in terms of increasing safety and also the connectivity for pedestrians. The second of three schematics that we have for this segment of Penn is along U.S. Grant High School at the driveway entrance. Currently, it is just a three-legged intersection. There is a driveway as well, though, that we are proposing to reconstruct. We wanted to construct some specific pedestrian improvements, signalized crossings, as well as increased signage and markings, so that the students that are walking to school can have more appropriate crossings for that area. So that is how these pedestrian upgrades would be laid out in this area. And for this area, to do the increased signage and striping for those crosswalks is a CMF of 0.732, which is about 26.8% reduction in crashes. And then the third of three that we have here is just south of the last location, but at Southwest 51st Street. We wanted to align what was a misaligned intersection. So Southwest 51st Street on the western side, that leg is existing, but on the eastern side, the leg is misaligned. So we are proposing to move that leg up to the north in order to make that more of a four-legged traditional intersection design with a signal, and of course, adding signage and striping for pedestrian crossings, as well as it is close to that U.S. Grant High School. So There are many different countermeasures actually happening at this intersection because of the signalized intersection, the striping, and of course realigning the leg. But the lowest CMF is a 0.6, which would be a 40% reduction. So very effective as well in our traffic safety here. So first of all, that is just one example of one of the corridors. So like I mentioned, that was Penn Avenue. That's one of 7 corridors that we have recommendations for in the plan. So you can see just the amount of detail that we've been able to get into in really trying to hash out the worst traffic safety problems throughout the city. But in addition to countermeasures, we also have some program and policy recommendations. That is in our Chapter 5, what we're calling our implementation plan. So last time we introduced to y'all the structure of this implementation plan, which are the 5 pillars. And any folks that were at the advisory board meeting will remember this activity that we did. So we have recommended actions. There are 27 total recommended actions that address things from a design, policy, and programmatic level to increase a culture of safety and improve our processes to be able to approve these kinds of projects in the future. So I wanted to highlight quickly some of the priority actions that we have. We have about 2 to 3 priority actions per pillar that we'll quickly run through, but just to kind of get a sense of how we came up with these actions, our partners at Nelson Nygaard, they were a sub-consultant on the project. They helped conduct a past plans review, and the table that you see on the slide here, every row is an item of policy that they reviewed, so it was very robust, and they were able to evaluate it against these 5 pillars of the safe systems approach. And the symbology that you see in the table denotes if a specific pillar was well addressed or if it was partially addressed with the half moon there. So this was our starting point. Think of it as existing conditions. We wanted the policies in this plan to fill in the rest of this table to give the city a more robust and well-rounded strategy going forward. So I'm going to walk through just quickly here. Like I mentioned, there are 27 total actions, but each pillar has a couple of priority actions. I believe there's about 9 total throughout the 5 pillars. So for safer vehicles, this pertains to how can we support vehicles that have safer technology as well as regular inspections to make sure that our vehicles are up to code and are safe to use. So the 2 actions that we prioritize in the plan are supporting NHTSA, or a National Highway Transportation Administration, proposed rules that advance federal motor vehicle safety standards, lots of alphabet soup here, related to occupant and all party survival in crashes include blind spot and backup cameras, lane departure, driver visibility, speed limiters, pedestrian head survival, and other emerging technology. So we're just supporting from a national perspective this emerging technology that increases vehicular safety. We're also recommending develop procurement strategies that specify minimum safety requirements on municipal fleet vehicles and include multimodal alternatives in the fleet as well. So just making sure that the 5-star safety ratings that are promoted in vehicles, that is a standard going forward on municipal owned vehicles. So then safer roads, this is a more straightforward pillar, but having to do with designing roads that protect users more adequately. So the first priority action here is quite lengthy. I'm not going to read the whole thing to y'all, but we are recommending updating intersection design and operations guidelines. We are looking to eliminate conflicts, consider lane reconfigurations, context-sensitive approach, which I mentioned earlier, being more aware of the surrounding land uses and what types of modes are going to be accessing those land uses instead of a blanket approach citywide to design, and then adopting an uncontrolled marked crosswalk decision-making process, otherwise known as mid-block crossings. So how can we support those elements in intersection design guidelines? Then secondly, establishing a neighborhood street program and proactive traffic calming program that focuses on improving the safety of local streets for all users by reducing speed and cut-through volumes. So those are those first 2 pillars, and then I'll take y'all home with the last 3. So safer speeds has to do with policies that support reducing vehicular speeds where appropriate, because we all know that speed does kill, and it is the #1 factor involved in the severity of a crash. So we recommend making amendments to the alternative speed abatement program. There are several listed in there. I'm not going to list all of them to you, but you can read on the screen. This was based off of the policy review that Nelson Nygaard conducted of the speed abatement program. And then as well to accompany that, establish an arterial traffic calming program so that we can take a look at more than just local roads citywide. Safer people is a pillar that has to do with road users themselves and making sure that people are, exhibiting safe behaviors as drivers as well as a pedestrian, transit rider, when they're biking, rolling, walking, everything. So developing a process that would support the installation of more mid-block crosswalks that supports that action that was in Safer Roads. Working with community partners and schools to provide highest quality driver, youth, and older adult training focused on safety and crash prevention, so just increasing education. And then lastly, the last pillar is on post-crash care, which is about emergency response when crashes do occur. And we do have one priority action in there, which is to establish a post-crash multidisciplinary evaluation team at the city to review fatal and severe injury collision locations and recommend other interventions. So this is pulling in experts from the emergency management side of things as they respond to issues, giving them the ability to be part of the conversation and possibly make recommendations for improvement as well from their perspective. So that wraps up the content we have today. So like I mentioned, we are here recommending an action to adopt and recommend to City Council that they adopt the Vision Zero Action Plan. Tomorrow we will be at the Traffic and Transportation Commission as well to present these recommendations. We are going to have our introduction to City Council at the February 11th meeting, and then we're going to take it for adoption on February 25th. So that is the timeline you can expect from this. And we are hoping to get this all approved because there are some federal grant opportunities that we anticipate to open in the springtime. Early to late March is our hope. We don't know for sure. But with this plan in adoption, this will move forward the Planning Department's ability to obtain funding for some of the improvements that you saw in today's presentation. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Thank you. Well done. Any questions?
Well, there was some comment or question about whether there was additional input from Public Works that was going to be occurring.
Yes, we did receive public input from Public Works, and their comments were addressed.
Oh, they have been already? That's
Yes.
not something.
Yes,
okay.
It's not something that needs put in these documents?
We already made the changes. So between the last time that we were here and now, we responded to comments from multiple different departments, Public Works included.
Okay. I just want to say this has been really an interesting thing to be involved in. It seems like it was really well run. It was easy to attend. It was well spaced. It was, the feedback after the meetings about what had occurred and what was being done about it. And then, the preview of what would happen at the next one. All of that was just really seamless. It seemed, from my vantage point, that the interaction between the consultants and the city was very smooth. And it was just interesting for somebody like me who has zero expertise in any technical way with respect to this. It was fascinating just to see it all. And they were very responsive to the questions that I had. It's like, well, how would that affect, land use in adjacent areas? I mean, they were very flexible in terms of their ability to respond to questions and so on. So I enjoyed participating in it. Big supporter. I think we can get to zero. I'm all for it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Anything else? All right. Well, our action today is to adopt the resolution.
I'll move approval.
A motion from Commissioner Powers. It's been seconded by Commissioner Meek. Please cast your votes. And that is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That brings us to the end of our individual items to be heard. We move on to additional items and communications and reports. Anything from Planning Commission committees?
I just will say, as the sole member of our Planning Commission Committee on Homelessness, working with the CSU people has been such an eye-opening experience for me. And, you know, you can't help but want to be more involved and move us toward more proactivity with respect to these issues. So I have appreciated, I mean, you know, you all know me, I think, as a neighborhood person. And I went to my first meeting with the neighbors very much, you know, listening to what they had to say and, you know, wanting to assure them that their views and concerns are valid and real. But I also have been very heartened, I will say, even at that first meeting on New Year's Eve, and I was thinking to myself, I can't remember seeing this much firepower in one room on such short notice, you know, on a holiday. But the city has really, you know, stepped up and answered the call, and they're very committed, and it's like all hands on deck. And so, you know, I would not have been able to support that application today if it hadn't been clear to me that we're moving in the right direction and that what's going to happen next is going to be an improvement, not a detriment, to the neighbors as well as to the mission and the facility. So,
Great. Any other committees? Nope.
Sorry, I guess I should report on behalf of the ADU task force that just won't go away.
Job security.
It's right. We are going, the task force will need to reconvene. And if anybody's watching, let me publicly apologize to anyone who showed up here and is upset by the fact that we did not have a full hearing of the comp plan amendments today. All I can say about that is this will be the second time we've had a full hearing about this. We've had numerous public meetings about the ADU ordinance, and I think we all understand the importance of us wanting to get it right. So I apologize to anyone who showed up and didn't get the chance to be heard. I'm happy to visit with you personally, and I think the next step for us is to make sure that we are, with regard to the ADU ordinance, separate from the issue of the LUDAs, the change to the comp plan, excuse me. I think we do need to make sure we are aligned with the council on what their desire is from a policy perspective about the ADU ordinance. Everything about these comp plan changes that concern the public are about the ADU ordinance. And so to consider this issue separately, I think is impossible, even though I think that's what we may be required to do. And so I think more discussion is necessary to make sure that we are following our legal mandate and to ensure that we are enacting good policy. So I appreciate everyone's patience. Apologize to any neighbors who are upset about that, and just, we're going to keep on. That's my report.
Planning Commission members, Commissioner Powers? Jeremy? Commissioner Privet?
Except happy birthday.
Yeah. Oh yeah, happy birthday to Commissioner Newman? Nothing? Commissioner Govine?
Nothing.
Commissioner Pennington?
Just again want to say happy birthday to Jeremy Meek. He's awesome.
Commissioner Noble? Commissioner LaForge? I don't have anything. Planning Department?
Just that we appreciate you all. We had a snowy meeting last time. Thank you all for being here today, especially if it's your birthday, and keeping business moving.
Municipal Counselor's Office? All right. Any citizens to be heard? We didn't hear from Barry today. Aww.
Can he come up? Can we just call him up? He's a citizen. He can be a citizen to be heard.
Barry, you have anything? All right. No other business? We are adjourned. Thank you.